Fernandez. Cheres, of course, the institution, Mr. Gabita Munyar. Officers and members of the Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines. Fellow workers of government, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Over the past couple of years, I have indeed come to look forward to this event, since the questions you almost always ask make for a memorable experience. And on the days leading up to this forum, I make a point to review all the data I need to explain the issues clearly. I remember that in 2011, I addressed you for the first time as President of the Republic. Back then, we had to face a delicate balancing act as we took a long, hard look at the contracts and systems we inherited and set about to purge them of opportunities for graft. The necessary pause led to a growing demand to pump prime the economy. This was the dilemma we faced when we set about to fulfill our two-pronged promise of eliminating corruption to significantly lessen poverty. Simply going back to business as usual to provide stimulus would fatally hamper our anti-corruption drive. On the other hand, economic momentum had to be maintained, even accelerated as the public demanded to see the fruits of reforms. This is why in this very forum 2 years ago, I announced our strategy to address both these concerns. As some agencies had to retool, so to speak, for good governance, we had other agencies take up the slack. This was the idea behind the stimulus package I unveiled to you 2 years ago. By spending money the right way, without kickbacks, without overpricing, without collusion in contracts, we had generated a great amount of savings. This, along with additional and new sources of funds, could be spent strategically to accelerate and expand much-needed programs. It was an embodiment of our campaign promise. By curbing corruption, we saved money, and we were able to channel this to programs that would bring us closer to our goal of alleviating poverty. If I may give a concrete example, the Araneta underpass in Quezon Avenue was allotted a budget of 694.15 million pesos. But because we undertook a proper, transparent bidding process, we were able to lower the project's total cost to 430 million pesos, and it was even finished 100 days ahead of schedule. The savings, worth 264 million pesos in this case, then went back to the national coffers, which could then be allocated towards other projects under the national strategy, whether it was building other road projects or funding vital services such as education and health. I'm happy to report that the stimulus program went on to help thousands of our countrymen. We were able to relocate informal settlers who were living in danger areas, build necessary infrastructure through the DPWH, and upgrade the facilities of government hospitals such as the Lung Center of the Philippines, the Philippine Heart Center, and the Philippine Children's Medical Center. The program also helped fund TESDA's Training for Work Scholarship Program and was responsible also for electrifying 1,513 sitios all around the Philippines. It provided funds for the PNP to hire an additional 15,000 non-uniformed personnel to do administrative work so that our policemen can fulfill the duties that they were trained for. It also funded Project NOAA, which has saved countless lives and freed many more from the unease brought about by natural calamities. The stimulus package was successful in advancing the benefits accrued to the citizens. When in the past, such benefits would be delayed by a cumbersome bureaucracy, our processes ensured the biggest positive impact in the most efficient and fastest possible manner. Needless to say, the program was very well received. The World Bank even said in their quarterly report that the stimulus program contributed 1.3 percentage points to GDP growth in the fourth quarter of 2011. It helped us overcome the inertia that the economy was experiencing then, and we are sustaining the momentum up to now. In 2012, our economy grew by 6.8% and then by another 7.6% in the first half of 2013, exceeding the forecasts of many experts. We moved to the 59th spot in the World Economic Forum's competitiveness rankings, marking a 26th place jump in only 3 years, which allowed us to leapfrog more traditionally competitive countries in the rankings. Above that, our proper spending on that stimulus package and our general fiscal responsibility convinced the world's 3 most renowned credit ratings agencies to grant our country investment grade status. This stimulus program that heralded our country's economic boom was named the Disbursement Acceleration Program. You may have heard of it. After all, at this point, who has not? For the past few weeks, nearly 2 years after I announced it, it has been unjustly and oddly vilified in the media. Perhaps I can repeat that for emphasis. 2 years after I announced the program, nearly 2 years after the same media lauded government for its resourcefulness, and after 2 years worth of projects that have helped perhaps millions of our countrymen, it is receiving intense criticism from some quarters. In fact, I was perplexed to hear that some people equated the DAP with PDAF, when simply it was a program that strategically allocated funds to agencies that had already proven the capacity to implement projects and programs rapidly and efficiently. The legality of such a process is clearly stated in Executive Order 292 or the Administrative Code of 1987, amongst other laws. It is difficult to fathom how one could equate this program with PDAF. The only thing one could remotely relate to PDAF were those projects undertaken through consultation with our legislators. After all, just as we engage regional offices, local partners, and civil society in identifying projects, was it not also appropriate to hear the proposals of the elected officials of the land? Taking this into account, such projects by the legislators made up a mere 9% of the entire program. Why then is the DAP being made an issue? The criticism of DAP also coincides with the criticism we are receiving about the bonuses granted by the SSS, the framework for which was outlined in the GOCC bill we signed into law 2 years ago. Even the reforms over the Bureau of Customs, which the public had long been asking for, has received unfair criticism. There have been personal attacks on some of the deputy commissioners we have just appointed, and you may have even gotten a vitriolic white paper attacking the person of Finance Secretary Cesar Purisima. And if I may share this, I read an article on the matter a few weeks ago that again perplexed me. It mentioned a certain court decision issuing a temporary restraining order against one of our steps to reform the Bureau of Customs. The decision suggested that, I quote, grave injustice, close quote, would be done if customs personnel were detailed to a new unit that would focus on crafting much-needed administrative, procedural, and legislative reform in the Bureau. Where is this grave injustice, may I ask? When these personnel would be paid exactly the same amount as they are making in their old posts and with their seniority intact. I wonder what would happen to our country if every employee that was assigned a new task by a superior would find it prudent to petition for a TRO and expect it to be granted. Since I am in a room full of journalists, perhaps I can leave it to you to connect the dots. All of these attacks came after plunder cases, among others, that were filed before the Office of the Ombudsman against a few well-known politicians. And perhaps again, because again, I am in a room full of journalists, I do not need to remind you of the true issue that has seemingly been drowned out by all the background noise. And so I ask you, let's keep our eye on the ball. The public was outraged by the audacity with which public officials allegedly stole from the national coffers through PDAF. This is an outrage we share, and this is precisely why we abolished PDAF and followed the evidence so that we may hold all those who committed wrongdoing accountable. Our media and our people are far too good, far too wise to be grossly and brazenly led to the wrong issue. Plunderers should be taken to account. As FOCAP, formed in 1974 to resist the martial law regime's iron grip on information as seen, the Philippines developed a moribund reputation because the world saw that reforms could be stopped in their tracks by the corrupt. Yet I submit that at no other time in living memory have we been so close to achieving permanent change. In the coming months and years, we can expect those wedded to the old ways to stop at nothing to prevent this change. I am confident, however, that the sober reporter, the responsible journalist, will see just how far we have gone and how much the old crooks have their backs to the wall. I am here to ask all of you, only to continue pursuing your journalistic ideals. After all, upon all our shoulders, government, media, and private citizens alike, rests the never-ending task of protecting and advancing our democracy. In the midst of the cacophony of voices, the journalist must be able to separate the important from the frivolous, the spin from the facts, the malicious lies from the simple truth. I'm confident that you will pursue the type of journalism that those who came before us fought for and at times died for, the type of journalism that builds nations. I encourage all of you to continue reporting what is important to the public, just as I continue my own endless pursuit of giving Filipinos the government they deserve. I hope that you continue your equally endless pursuit of being the media that our people deserve. I believe this is the significance of our forum. This is why I am very eager to have a candid, transparent conversation with all of you to further strengthen the relationship between government and media, to help myself and my cabinet gain an even greater feel of the pulse of the people, and to give rise to balanced, informed reporting that works for the public's interest. Thank you, and I believe at this point I should be ready for any and all of your questions. Good day.
Thank you, Mr. President. And now we come to the Q&A session. Would you like to? Our ground rules stay. Only the regular members of FOCUP can ask questions. And there are 2 microphones there. I urge you to come forward so as not to waste time, those who want to ask questions. Go ahead, please. Identify yourself, please, your name and the agency you represent.
Mr. President, I'm Barbara May Dakanaya of Gulf News in Dubai. My question is, you're known as a Teflon president. No criticism ever sticks with you. How do you attribute this? Is it a question of genes or a continuous exercise of ethics, and how do you do it?
How do I do the consistent performance
Exercise
of an ethical
ethics,
behavior?
yeah.
Well, in Teflon,
Now I want to know if you can attribute it also to your genetical something.
Okay. Well, first of all, I guess I really do have to give credit to both my parents who actually formed the ideology that I follow. Their practices, their best practices were inculcated in me at a very young age, in the sense of responsibility also. But at the end of the day, I think if there is one thing that I can pride myself with a relation with our people is consistency and always seeking to tell the truth at all times. It may be an unpopular truth, but I think I have been very consistent since even before entering public life to stand by what I say and also to do what I say.
Well, this is a personal question. I'm just curious how a president really, how a president can try to resist temptation, and how do you do this?
Well, we were always taught to have simple lives. We were taught to be very disciplined at a very young age. And I guess it helps that I went to an institution that also, and the situation that I found myself, especially during the martial law years, wherein in one of the courses in our school, we were taught that to resist or to effectively resist an oppressive structure, you have to live a simple life. The more you are wedded to things of a material nature, various systems, to certain privileges, the less effective you will be in fighting the oppressive structure. And we have tried to live by those tenets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. President. I'm Jonah from Japanese newspaper Asahi Shimbun. About the concrete blocks in Scarborough, what does your government plan to do with them? They're still there. The Chinese government is saying that the photograph that we presented to media wasn't even taken from Scarborough. And question number 2, in the recently held ASEAN-Japan meeting in Brunei, the statement said something about freedom of navigation. I'd like to get your idea of what exactly freedom of navigation is, and if freedom of navigation would allow us to, go nearer to Scarborough, because right now our Navy vessels or Coast Guard vessels aren't supposed to go nearer than the horizon, right? Like 8 nautical miles from Scarborough. Just get your ideas.
Yung horizon is defined as 25 miles. No? We are not allowed to go to Scarborough Shoal. Seems to be an oxymoron. No? It is ours, and there is no rule that says we can go there. Freedom of navigation basically means guaranteed also by other various international agreements, amongst them so UNCLOS, that you do have the right of transit. Concrete blocks. The concrete blocks, I'm told, no, are located within. I have to be very precise. What do we intend to do with them? They are, from our findings, they are very, very old concrete blocks. Some of them have barnacles attached to them. They are not a new phenomenon. So they don't seem to give us any reason to have an increase in anxiety. Do they pose a threat to navigation or to safe navigation? At the present time, I have not had information that they do so. So they don't present an immediate danger to any of our vessels or even those that would transit in the area around the Scarborough Shoal. The concrete blocks, I understand, are within the shoal, or the lagoon within the shoal.
And because they are very, very old concrete blocks with barnacles, we leave them there. There is no attempt to extricate or remove or blast them, because there was a proposal from the Navy to remove the concrete blocks.
Again, if they do, they understand are in the portion that is shallow. Shallow probably would not have vessels transiting them if they do not present a danger to shipping. Or to any ships transiting the area, then there might not be a need to remove these concrete blocks at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. Yamani.
Morning, Mr. President. Following up on Joanna's
Will you
question.
identify yourself, please?
Manny Mugato from Reuters. Following up on that question, in the last East Asia Summit in Brunei early this month, there were two messages heard. One from Secretary Kerry and one from Japanese Prime Minister Abe, saying that there should be unity among ASEAN in dealing with China in the proposed code of conduct. Why is Kerry and Prime Minister Abe calling on ASEAN to have a unified position? Is there something wrong with ASEAN now? Because Chinese leaders have already visited all of ASEAN countries except the Philippines, and last month China did not want you to go to Nanning for the expo. Are these pressures getting on to the conclusion of the code of conduct, or is it related to our arbitration case in the ITLOS?
I find myself in an awkward position. You're asking me to be the spokesman for the Prime Minister of Japan and the Secretary of State of America. I have not received authorization from either gentleman. No? So I can only hazard a guess. And if you would want that, I am prepared to do so. This body of water, no, which I labeled the sea with many names, no, is a portion of the world's oceans that wherein at least 40% of commerce, no, has to traverse. And it's everybody's interest, especially those who would want to improve the global economic conditions, that freedom of navigation is not questioned, no, and that there are no potential threats to limitations on freedom of navigation. So for both economies that are reviving and rejuvenating both their economies, this is a very important body of water that has to have that freedom. Unity within ASEAN. In 2002, they tried to come up with a code of conduct. As you know, it failed. The only result was a declaration of conduct, and the declaration of conduct was a statement of motherhood principles, which had no operational components and was not, in a sense, legally binding. Now, we raised this matter up in 2012 in Phnom Penh. And I think instead of focusing on the difficulties, I think we should be elated that finally, there has been the start of discussions, perhaps not on the formal portion of negotiating the items within the COC, But we are discussing already the formulation of the COC. And the first meeting was in a place called Suzhou in China. And after, again, the lapse of, from the time from 2002, at least in 2013, we are starting to sit down and everybody has to show that image of cooperating in crafting the COC, which will undoubtedly ease the tensions in the sea by many names.
And Mr. President, during the same meeting in Brunei, you called for a status quo at the time of the DOC in 2002. So how would we convince China and other ASEAN countries to go back to the status quo?
Well, the DOC itself stated that, no, that there should be no, I don't have the document with me, but if I remember correctly, no new installations, no habitation in areas previously inhabited. And if we are all saying that we abide by the DOC, then the status quo should be maintained.
And that is asking China to remove its presence in Scarborough and Ayungin Shoal?
Well, the bottom line is we are undergoing arbitration. We're pursuing a second track with the COC. And at the end of the day, either or both, no, will seek to clarify everybody's entitlements with regards to this body of water.
But your call for a status quo, does it mean that you want China to withdraw from
I think
Scarborough?
you should study the matter. No? Scarborough Shoal is 120 miles from Masinloc, Zambales, clearly within our EEZ. If we are supported or upheld by the arbitration, then that is a clear provision. No? Where everybody is committed to work under international law, amongst them UNCLOS, and UNCLOS gives us the EEZ, to which both China and other countries, no, are signatories to, including the Philippines.
So you're saying that the ruling by the ITLOS will be enforceable?
Come again?
The ruling of ITLOS will be enforceable?
Well, I'm saying that there is a legally binding document, and if you say that you adhere to international law, then you should abide by the decision, as we will abide by the decision.
Okay. Sir, on another topic, we are still negotiating with the More Islamic Liberation Front, and we have committed to put in place a Bangsamoro structure by 2015, before the elections in 2016. But until now, the annexes are not yet completed for the power sharing and disposition of forces. And again, in early this year, we had problem in Sabah. Do you think the problem with Sabah will complicate the peace talks with the MILF?
There's been no discussion on the issue of Sabah with the MILF. That is not, so we say, any item on, it is not, how should I put it? It is not an item on the agenda for both parties.
So no effect?
It's not an item, so we're not discussing it. No.
Thank you.
Next one.
Mr. President, good morning. My name is Jamela. I work for Al Jazeera. I have two questions also, both about issues from the southern Philippines. It's been over a month since, well, basically it's been over a month since the Zamboanga crisis, in fact, has started. The Secretary of Defense, Secretary Gasmin, has said that the crisis, in fact, is over. However, there are videos now coming out online, videos that were filmed by hostages who were waving white flags at that time, and it showed that despite them waving their white flags, the military were in fact firing at them, and these videos have been coming out, being taken off online. These videos have been validated by human rights advocates in Zamboanga and have also been corroborated by statements from some hostages who have also said that they have been fired at by the military during the 19 days of crisis. Sir, what do you make of this?
I mean, I haven't seen the videos, number one. Number two, the videos from the Secretary of Justice's point of view have not been verified. But it starts out with the violation of international humanitarian law and using the hostages as human shields. I think it was 2 days ago when I was talking to the Secretary of National Defense, and he reminded me that at times, so when they were using human shields, there were certain MNLF or alleged MNLF personnel who were firing at the military while having the hostages as human shields. So these are claims; they will be properly investigated, and if there are cases that have to be filed, they will be filed. But at the same time, perhaps I should caution you that it smacks of a bit of propaganda. The bottom line is the actions by the MNLF brought about the crisis in Mindanao, and if they didn't, or Ms. Suarez's faction of the MNLF, if they didn't do it, then we would have had the Zamboanga City crisis.
Okay. Well, are you saying also that there's a possibility that these videos were in fact propaganda by the MNLF?
I'm again at a disadvantage. I have not seen these videos,
Okay.
and I'm being asked to comment on that which I have not seen. So it will be speculation on top of speculation, which I think is not responsible.
All right, sir. All right. A second question would have to be about the issue of human rights violations supposedly in Sabah. Now, thousands of Filipinos, illegal immigrants in Sabah, are languishing in detention centers in Sabah, Malaysia. I mean, most of them have no access to families, no access to lawyers. There have been allegations of human rights abuses allegedly committed by Malaysian authorities on these Filipinos. And this has been validated by a study that has been done by the Human Rights Commission of the ARMM, in fact, where they've interviewed over 90% of those who have been deported, have also said that they have suffered torture, abuse, and even extrajudicial killings committed allegedly by Malaysian authorities. What efforts have been made, in fact, to address these problems? Is there a possibility that any of the representative from the government will be able to be allowed to have access to these detention centers and really just make all these allegations be cleared out?
If I remember correctly, we have had already access to all of our citizens there, and in fact, even the detained individuals. Let me just try to recall one particular incident. Early on, I just had to recall some of the details. No? There was what was reported in our media, a woman who claimed that her brother, or allegedly, the woman said her brother was killed, allegedly by Malaysian forces. We were able to trace this particular woman. The DSWD, I think, was principal in finding the woman, who later on said that, if I remember correctly, she actually didn't see her brother being taken. She in effect retracted everything that was printed in the media. Early on, there was issues about those who were detained, and we were not being allowed to see them. But the last report I do recall was that we had managed to see all of our detained individuals. I get regular updates on the status of cases that have been filed or will be filed against those who went to Sabah and allegedly perpetrated all of the violence there. Now, your portrayal versus the reports that I'm getting seem to be widely disparate, and I will have a review of the same.
Sir, do you mean to say, sir, that you're not convinced that allegations of human rights violations are ongoing there? I mean, we've spoken to those who have been deported. I mean, maybe that's one incident where it was not particularly accurate, but we have, and a lot of media have interviewed those who have been deported, and a lot of them have said they have suffered abuses, and the biggest problem really is access to help and assistance for those who have been detained. In fact, some of them can be detained for as long as 2 years without even having any access to lawyers or any of their families.
Again, the reports that I get, the official reports, are in wide, shall we say, disagreement with what you're stating. But you're having asked a question, I'm now curious, and I will have a review of all the steps that have been undertaken. And we will furnish you the results of the same.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
You know, just a minute. Before it goes way back, I would like to get some clarification, Mr. President, about this arbitration about the conflicting claims in the South China Sea. Does it refer only to Scarborough Shoal, or does it include Mischief Reef? Scarborough lang ba, o does it include Mischief Reef?
I'll have to get back to you. I just want to be very precise, no, with regards to all of the specifications on arbitration. I want to be extremely sure. I'll get back to you on that.
So it's really critical that we get this decision from the arbitration agency.
I guess-
critical to our claim.
No, the important thing is that there are conflicting claims and there has been no mechanism that has been
I see.
utilized from the time of these conflicting claims from
Yes.
the 70s to resolve the issue.
Right.
Now we're in a period where tensions are increasing or how we're increasing. And we want to make sure that there is no possibility for the tensions to increase
I see.
or to be generated again. You want clarity of everybody's entitlements and
I
responsibilities.
see. Okay, thank you. Melo.
Good morning, Your Excellency. I'm Melo Acuna from China Radio International. The economy seems to be very robust with the credit ratings we achieved from credit rating agencies. However, the Asian Development Bank, in its press release last October 2, said there are still 7.3 million Filipinos who don't have enough work to make both ends meet, as there are 3 million Filipinos out of jobs. So how do we translate this economic growth to more inclusive growth, Mr. President?
Well, one of the proposals we have, for instance, in the 2014 budget is to expand the CCT program. As you know, the primary condition of the conditional cash transfer program is keep your children in school. The expansion will be as to the same stipend to keep your children in high school. Why are we insisting on this? The idea being that there's a study by the Philippine Institute for Developmental Studies that stated a direct correlation between finishing high school and having a 40% premium on income versus those who just graduated grade school as one of the steps towards inclusive growth. There is a plan also for revitalization, for instance, of agriculture like in the coconut industry. Plant new trees, government assistance will have a condition. The condition being that you intercrop when you get government assistance. What is the difference? If you rely primarily on coconuts, your income is pegged at about 20,000 per annum per hectare. If you intercrop with coffee, then it will be about it's over 170, close to 180,000 per hectare per annum. So that is also again another step. We have active partnership between our educational sector and industry. TESDA's Workforce Scholarship Program. If you're familiar, I think, with the figure that roughly about 10% of those who apply with the BPO industry get accepted. TESDA's graduate, I understand, go up to about 70% acceptance rate by the industry. So then that is the result of closer coordination between what industry needs and the skills that we are providing our people. You have all of these infrastructure projects that enhance tourism. We are targeting if I remember correctly, 5.5 million tourist arrivals or foreign tourist arrivals by this year. We want access to all of our tourist sites that much more efficient and that much more convenient. So you have improvements in various airports as well as the construction of new airports on the line. And the infrastructure programs also, especially, finally we've resolved all of the issues with regards to the connector road between the NLEX and SLEX. There are so many programs also by DOLE. And again, we are mandating also through CHED the requirement that SUCs become more and more relevant to their institutions. At the end of the day, we believe people are our greatest resource and all of the investments are geared towards giving them the necessary skills so that they can take advantage of all of the opportunities that are existing already and are forthcoming in the horizon.
Very well, Mr. President. But in 2015, a year before you leave the presidency, there will be this ASEAN community. The reason I asked the question earlier was to find out if we have a fighting chance with the ASEAN community getting into one solid block. So what chances have we as a country and as a people?
Well, I think, let me just point out just one aspect. I think you're aware that a lot of manufacturing has been going on into the country. We look at being one economic bloc. For instance, yesterday, I hope the Mexican ambassador will not mind if I say this, but in his courtesy call, when he presented his credentials, he did say that since there are so close ties between Mexico and the Philippines straight going back to the colonial period, then it is but logical for them to see us as the entry point towards the ASEAN region. We have comparative advantages in certain areas. For instance, car manufacturing, truck manufacturing, or assembling might be better in certain areas within ASEAN, but that doesn't preclude us from participating in terms of producing the necessary parts for all of these vehicles. And there have been significant inroads in that aspect. Can I cite an example, for instance, of a company called BE Aerospace? This is located, the first plant outside of North America and Europe, is in the Philippines, in Batangas in particular. They make the galleys, lavatories, other items within planes, and they have quite, it might not be a perfect monopoly, but and seats also is another product. But basically all of the things within commercial airlines are product lines of this company called BE Aerospace. And they are actually, they set up the first plant outside of North America and Europe in the Philippines. The other aspect is the BPO sector, for instance. I was reminded that, I'm sorry, I forget the exact name, but it deals with issuing of visas and consular matters. A major portion for Asia, I think, if I remember correctly, I may stand corrected, of the UK government is being handled out of Manila already, and other countries are looking as to the efficiencies that can be gained by locating in the Philippines. I can go on and on about the list. Bottom line is, we have, again, advantages that makes us, comparative advantages that enable us to be a good player within this ASEAN community. And the bigger market redounds to more opportunities for our people and our companies.
Mr. President, this is not putting the cart before the horse, but
Inyo po nga napapanood ang pagpapatuloy ng pagharap ni Pangulong Noynoy Aquino sa Presidential Forum o sa mga miyembro ng Foreign Correspondents Association of the Philippines o FOCAP, kung saan pinag-usapan niya sa mga tanong ng mga mamamahayag ang ilan sa mga topics katulad ng credit ratings o ang ekonomiya ng bansa, ang Zamboanga crisis kung saan nanindigan ang Pangulo na hindi daw magaganap ito kung hindi dahil sa pagpasok sa Zamboanga ng ilang miyembro ng MNLF. Pinag-usapan din ang Bangsamoro Framework at maging ang issue ng West PHL Sea. Samantala sa kanyang talumpati naman kanina ay tila sinamantala ng Pangulo na pag-usapan din ang Disbursement Acceleration Program o DAP na ayon sa kanya ay hindi dapat ihalin tulad sa PDAF naman o ang pork barrel.